Hi, I'm Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. We all have been in transition all our life, in different areas of our life. And I like to use the metaphor of triathlon, something that I've been doing for about 13 years. And first you swim, and then you get to the transition area, and then you change and get on your bike, and then you transition again and you run. And that's a great metaphor for life. We go from one thing to another, and things lead us to exciting things. And speaking of exciting things, today we have two explorers underneath the earth, which is amazing, and mapping tunnels and caves. Patricia Cambisas, thank you for being here. And Mark Wenner, who you've already done a show, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And Patricia, you have a PhD. You have been all over the world going into caves, mapping caves, and the rest of our audience, like me, knows nothing about that. So you kind of give our audience an idea, what exactly do you do when you get in the caves, and also what brought you in your life to go into caves in the first place?
Well, let me answer the second one first. Okay. So that is, I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, so I was a city girl. And when I graduated from college, I got married, and my significant other was a caver, and I didn't know anything about caves or caving. And he said, I got to explain to you that, caves are very important to me, and you got to know that I'm going to be gone a lot of weekends, so I hope that's not going to be a problem. And I'm like, I don't think it's a problem, but I'd like to go on a cave trip just to see what it's like. And so he took me on my first cave trip in 1974, and it was like, I swear to God, the second that I got into the cave, I was hooked. That was just like absolutely, so that wasn't even a transition. I went in as a normal person and I came out as a caver.
Transformed. Wow.
It was pretty dramatic. And so, and ever since then, and like I said, that was in 1974, I feel the same way every time I go into a cave, that same sense of, wow, this is so cool, this is so exciting. And so that's kind of how I started. And I wasn't initially a cave mapper. I just wanted to see caves because they were just a foreign environment, and they were just so interesting and intriguing and exciting to me. And I wanted to see, like, well, where do they go? Where does that passage go? How far does this go? What's around the next corner? And so I went on, probably 6 months after I started caving, a friend of mine and I went to a big cave that was in our caving area, and we found a new area. And so we went and we explored. We just pushed the new area. If you're gonna, in caving lingo, we scooped it, which means that we went and explored it and we didn't map it. But at the time, I didn't. I was like, I want to see this. This is exciting. This is new. It had the potential for connecting to another big cave system that was only like 200 feet away in their closest point.
And this was where?
This was in Missouri. This was in southeastern Missouri, in one of the big cave systems in southeastern Missouri. And so we went, explored for about 5 hours, came out of the cave. I was just psyched and jazzed about it. And at the time, I had just moved to Kentucky, and we were working with the Mammoth Cave Park geologist, and there were a team of cavers there who were mapping caves around Mammoth Cave for this research purpose. And one of those guys happened to be one of the original explorers of that cave. So I was like, oh my God, I got to tell you, we found new passage. And he's like, wow, that's great. He says, how far did it go? And I'm like, I don't know. And he says, well, what directions were you going in? And I'm like, I have no idea. And he says, well, what was the passage like? And I was like, well, we kind of ran through it, so I don't really remember. And he's like, oh. And he just kind of walked away, and I was like completely deflated because I couldn't tell him anything. And at that point, that's what made me decide to become a cave mapper. I'd mapped a little bit before, but that was the first time that I actually saw the value in it. And so that's what started me as a cave mapper. And what was your first question?
Okay. Well, what is cave mapping, and what does that mean
Well, actually, cave mapping is a part of something bigger, and the bigger part is just exploration in general. And so when you are exploring, if you're going to go by the technical sense of what exploration is that you are adding to that body of knowledge about the world. And so when you explore a cave, part of the exploration is to document it. And mapping is part of the documentation. Photography is another part of the documentation. There's different things that you do to document it. If the only thing you do is just visit it for your own personal challenge and your own personal gain.
Which you originally did.
That's what I did originally,
Right.
yes. That's being more of an adventurer. And there's nothing wrong with being an adventurer. But if you have it, you know, if it's kind of like a personality type that gets into exploration. So if you have that in you, eventually it's going to come out and you are going to explore. And so part of mapping the cave is part of the exploration process.
I see. Wow. I see. And then the two of you have been working together on various projects. And as I understand it, you don't dive, but Mark does. And together you can go into some of these caves that has water, but not all the way.
He can go where I can't go.
He can, okay.
So basically, Mark, you're an exploration tool. I'm very sorry, but I use Mark to go to places that I can't go. But no, actually, we're a good team together. And you know, for me, part of the exploration is, well, I can't jump into that water. I don't have the expertise and the knowledge and the equipment to do it, and the training, and he does. And so it's kind of a good collaboration, is how I see it. Do you see it that way?
Divers can't get where they need to go without dry cavers. So we really have to be both. And both require specific sets of skills. And as a diver, if you don't have dry caving skills, then you can't get to the water. So in this environment, like on the map, you can see where things terminate in water. And all we are is able to extend their work.
And I think this map, could you explain what are we looking at here?
Well, this is the result of several survey trips where we used very basic equipment to determine how far that cave went, how deep it went.
In Cuba.
This particular one was in Cuba, and I put it up there just because Cuba is in the news these days. And so after you explore and after you collect your data, you have to do something with it. If you just put your survey data in a drawer and nobody ever sees it again, then your exploration was for naught, and you've gone and impacted the cave for nothing. So what you do is you take your data and you transform it into something like this. Now this is a paper map. A lot of what we do today is digital, so we make computer representations of these and models as well. And this is one of the things that you can do with the cave data. And so and this is a bird's eye view. This is like if you were looking down on the cave. And here's an entrance, and you can follow the passages, and eventually you will get to water. And that is the Atlantic Ocean.
The ocean. So the cave goes down and through, and then you were
you go in this way. And then you come out. There's nowhere else to go once you come out that entrance, unless you want to swim in the ocean, which is not that big of a deal. But yeah, so this was the entrance, and then these are just the passages. And it looks, the way after you map it, it seems like, well, that was pretty simple when you look at the map. But you know, you got to understand that this little much here is 100 feet. So this cave is really big. It's a very big cave, and it's on the north central part of Cuba.
Now you have gone all over the world in different places, going through caves, right? So can you name a couple of the places and some of the highlights?
Oh my goodness, there's so many.
So many.
Well, let's see. I've been to Laos is one of the most recent places I've been to. Laos is right next door to Vietnam, and I went there twice to survey a big cave, and we were working with a German kind of an NGO, a non-government agency, non-government organization, and they were working with the Lao people to help them develop their natural resources for tourism. And this cave is like, it's a huge entrance, it's got a big river in it, and basically you can do a little like kayak tour, which they take people on kayak tours. But in order to really understand the whole cave, we needed to map it. And so we spent 2 weeks total on 2 different trips mapping this cave. And we did it all in kayaks. So yeah, because it was like deep water, and like I said, it was a big river cave. So, so that was, and it was so big that all of the instruments that I have here, nothing could measure it. So we had to go in with special instruments so we could measure the ceiling and measure, you know, the length of the passages, because there was no dry ground to walk on. Every place you had to be in kayaks. So, so that was one place, and I've done many trips to China. China has fabulous caves. China has some huge caves that are just fabulous. I've done a lot of caving in Mexico. Mexico has a whole variety of caves. Some of the deepest caves in the world are in Mexico. Some of the longest underwater caves are in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. And so I've been involved in a project there of exploring and mapping the dry caves, because there are actually dry caves in the Yucatan, which is something that people didn't really appreciate until about 2008. So up until that time, all the cave exploration that was done was underwater. And they did, think of this, they've surveyed over 1,000 kilometers of cave underwater. That's like, what do you think? Is that not mind-boggling?
It's huge.
It's huge. And so one of the things that's interesting about that is if any caves in the world could come close to reaching Mammoth Cave in its length, that cave is going to be in the Yucatan, and it's going to be an underwater cave. And so I'm playing both sides of the fence. I go to the Yucatan and help make the Yucatan caves longer, and then I go to Mammoth Cave and try to make Mammoth Cave stay long.
And Mammoth Cave is in Kentucky, where you live. And then the two of you are a part of a team to do Mammoth Cave, is that correct?
Right.
And Mark, can you tell us a little bit about the underwater part of Mammoth Cave and really what you have right there?
Well, it's a challenging cave to go underground and be within, and to do it underwater, it's even more so. The visibility's bad most of the time, so timing it so you get in there when the visibility is good is rare. It's a significant trip to get to the water. So the more people that we have diving, the last trip we had 5 people diving. So that requires a lot of support, because it's a lot of equipment. And we stayed overnight in the cave at our dive location. So, you know, 33 bags of stuff getting transported through the cave, through streams, through mud. It's a real work to get there and to keep all the equipment working. You know, there's got to be some logistics to keeping things working. A lot of things don't work after you've traversed a lot of mud. So, you know, there's just the obstacles just keep surmounting and surmounting. The longer you're in the cave, the more obstacle you find.
And would this be, Patricia would be with you in the cave, but she's not doing the diving part, is that right?
Actually, I try to coordinate his support team, because it requires a lot of people. And you have to convince a lot of people that they want to be part of this support team, because it's a lot of work to carry, to haul. You know, we have to go down a series of ladders, then we have to traverse, I don't remember how much passage it is, and then you have to get down in the mud and kind of squirm your way to where they're going to start diving. And so the way that I help with this is I try to coordinate the support for it. And of course I'll go in there as well and haul tanks as well. But I don't remember, what did we need? 15 or so people. And so we did this from a research facility called Hamilton Valley, which is a research station that is operated by the Cave Research Foundation. And they are the group that has been mapping Mammoth Cave for the past 50 years. So it took, you know, Mammoth Cave is like what, 5 miles long, so it took a while to map it all.
Is it all done?
Oh, no. Oh,
No.
no, that was one of the reasons that kind of got me interested in working with Mark, is that there's a little 35-mile section of cave that is not connected to Mammoth Cave. It's like maybe a kilometer away from it, and there's a dive lead in it. And so I was trying to figure out, well, what can we do to try to connect these? Because it would add 35 miles to Mammoth Cave, and it would make it harder for the Yucatan Cave to catch it. So,
Well, I mean, there's competition on caves?
Of course.
Oh,
It's friendly, of course. It's a friendly
competition.
competition. But, you know, it makes things interesting. And you know, I play both sides of the competition because
Yeah.
both sides are exciting.
So that non-connected part, and it's not even Mammoth Cave, it's something. I guess you have to
It's
name
called
it.
Wigpissel Cave.
Wigpissel?
Wigpissel Cave.
What a
And
name. How did that ever happen? Where'd that name come from?
oh, the person who discovered it, I don't know, there was a pig involved and there was something else. And I don't
A
remember.
whistle.
And
whistle.
Wigpissel came out of the name, and so it was discovered in the 80s, I think, the late 70s, early 80s, and about, I don't know, maybe 28 or 29 miles was explored and mapped, and then a big rain event happened, and the passages that they were using to access it became mudded shut, and nobody could get through it. So for many, many years, you couldn't even get into Wigpissel. And so there were other caves that were in the vicinity that people explored, and because that's why you explore, you document it, you can put all of your data on a topographic map and see how close you are, where do I need to concentrate. And eventually they connected to Wigpissel kind of from a back entrance. And so once again, now it's a big united system, and what we would like to do is connect it to Mammoth Cave, and that would add another 35 miles to Mammoth Cave.
Wow, I'll
Yeah.
be darned. And then you have some equipment here. Could you give us a short idea of what you do, because you're measuring things? This is very technical, but could you tell us what are these things?
Okay, well, of course the most important thing is caves are completely dark, so you have to have light. And
Okay.
so, and of course, you don't want to be holding the light in your hand because you're traversing all these obstacles, so we have helmet mounted lights. This is just one kind of light that we have. This is what people used to use to explore caves. This is a carbide light, and you put calcium carbide in here, you put water in here, you turn this on, you make a flame, or you make a spark, and it gives you a beautiful flame. And people caved with this for years. As a matter of fact, I used this until, about 1989, and I was going on very long survey trips, and that was putting so much weight on the front of my helmet that it was causing neck strain, so I went to electric. And so, but at one time electric lights were not reliable, so that's what people used. But those right now make excellent markers for survey stations, because you have to be able to recover your stations. But many places don't like you to leave permanent marks. So this orange tape is what we do, is we write on it with a Sharpie, and we'll put a station number on it. And so these other pieces of instrument, these are all pretty primitive, not this one, not quite so much, but this measures the distance. And so basically we used to do it with a tape. You press the button and it'll aim at your station, and your distance will show up on here. And then in order to find out what direction is your cave going in, then you need a compass, which tells you where all your stations are with respect to north. And you need to also know what is your departure from horizontal, how far up or how far down is it. So these instruments, these very simple instruments, are what, and with the exception of this is more recent, this is what most people use to map caves with. So this has been mapped with these very primitive instruments, as has been Mammoth Cave. And of course the final thing is that someone has to record the data, so we always have a book, and somebody records the book, and we write our data, and then we will make like a representative picture, I don't know if you can see it very well, of what the cave looks like. And this is what we translate into that.
Into that, gotcha.
Okay. And so this is, and we always say, you know, you want to put the booty in the book. In other words, you want to put what you explored and what you found, you want to survey it and document it.
Right, because it's not like when you first went in, this is not the adventure thing. This is to document it,
Yes.
and people will know about this.
Well, and also just for exploration purposes, especially in a very big cave system, if you don't start making a map, then you have no idea where you are. How, you know, what's your relationship to other caves in the area? You have no clue, because you have no way. You can't just guess. You'll not be right. And so that's why, that's another important reason. So the exploration, the survey is part of the exploration tool.
Right.
Now Mark also does survey, but his equipment looks a little different than that for obvious reasons, since his is completely underwater.
We're submerged.
Right, underwater.
We're submerged, so some of the tools that are there cannot be used. And so maybe it's a little bit more primitive then. So the grade or the level of accuracy on the underwater survey is a little less. So we use a compass that's just fastened to our book, keeping track of your pencil, because if they get lost, you just don't pick them up, they float away.
Oh, right. And you're writing underwater, and it writes.
Everything's got a clip on it.
Wow.
Because we're wearing harnesses that allow us to, naturally we have 10 times as much gear as dry cavers do. So everything that you see that we use has a snap bolt on it. So we're keeping it hung from our harness. This is our lifeline. That's the way we go to and come back from.
So you know when you're in the dark, I can't, underwater, in the cave, and this is showing where you've been and where you're going.
They're like breadcrumbs.
This is
like breadcrumbs.
This is our survey tool, and it is breadcrumbs in that there's knots every 10 feet on this line. And we're using those increments in the line if we can't see it, and a lot of times we can't. A lot of times we've lost our visibility on the way back because of the bubbles coming from our dive gear. We've lost our visibility, so we're counting this stuff in the dark. So we're trying to take advantage of visibility on the way in to lay the line, to actually put the line on placements as you would with dry survey. But on the way back, we're counting our knots. And trying to get our azimuth on the way in if possible. Or you just divide it into 2 trips. You do the push dive running your line, come back counting knots. Now you've got more or less an idea of how you are roughly. And then on the way in, you bring camera gear and maybe a book and get the next level, the next tier of survey information.
And could you tell us about this big black structure thing there? What is this?
That's my sexy scooter.
Sexy scooter.
Most things in most caves that have had exploration done before, all the explorational work is done on the front end of the cave. So as you continue to explore, where your work is pretty far away.
Yes.
And you're donning all of this gear, which it's hard enough to swim without the gear on you when you're just teamed up with tanks, multiple tanks. The scooter is the only way to get there and get back. Sometimes we use 2 scooters. Everything's got redundancy to it in cave diving. So the scooter is really something that really needs redundancy, because you're out, let's say you're out in the system 3,000, 4,000 feet, and your scooter goes down. You have to have another scooter.
Yeah.
So, you know, here again, you've got a snap bolt, and you're towing one from the back of your harness. And what you'll do, similar to how we breathe our tanks, we'll breathe 1/3 of the air in our tanks, and then we'll save 1/3 for the return, and then another 1/3 is there as a reserve in case something happens. Same way with the scooter. You run that scooter 1/3 of its life out, kind of knowing how long this battery, this is a lithium battery in this, and so if it's got a 4-hour burn time at a certain speed, you'll clip that thing off 1/3 of its use and then pick up your fresh scooter. So there's a lot of that going on. There's we have computers that could probably land the space shuttle. I wouldn't recommend it, but a very sophisticated gas mixing. We're tracking that we're breathing more than just air. We're breathing blends of helium and oxygen, raised oxygen for many reasons. So we have to keep track of the depth and the type of gas that we're breathing.
Well, you know, this equipment is just amazing to me, and we have a little bit of time. I wanted to get just a thumbnail sketch of why are you both in caves? The reason is
curiosity.
Curiosity.
It's human nature to want to know, like, what does this thing do? You know, there's many different things that you could explore that people are curious about, and caves just happen to be one of the things that, you know, we kind of got hooked in. If it wasn't caves, it would be something else.
True.
It would be mountain climbing, it would be mountaineering, or maybe it would be, you know, some other trek in a remote jungle or something. I think there's a certain personality type that is very turned on by exploration, by going somewhere where other people have never been before. It's kind of, you have to have the same mentality as the guys who go to the moon or who want to go to Mars. Is you want to go someplace where no one's ever been before.
That's exciting.
And a lot of the equipment that they are testing to go to Mars or to go to the moon to live on a long-term basis, they're testing out in caves, because it's kind of an analog in many ways.
Yeah.
It's an extreme environment.
Wow. And can you give us a sentence or two of why are you there, especially in the water?
Well, I've been to the top of mountains and at the bottom of lakes, and you know, I've been many, many beautiful places on Earth. But when I get in a cave, the far reaches of a cave, I've seen things that they're so much more beautiful than any place that I've ever been.
Wow.
And it leaves, not to mention artifacts and all the other things that we've come across over the years. I mean, it's real, it's like a time machine. It's like you're traveling in a time machine and you see a mastodon tusk that dropped into place 10,000 years ago. Well, we don't look at life in time frames like that. I think we think about the next 10 to 20 years. We don't think about 10,000 years, 20,000 years, 20 million years.
Right.
So geology just, that trips my trigger.
The geology, the adventure, and it sounds like
the unknown, that lure of the unknown.
The lure of the unknown, which I'm amazed you're still finding places nobody's been.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's so many, yes.
We have a long list of places to go check out.
And there's a real passion for finding these unknown places in different parts of the world. And it takes all this gear, and then the world will know where the caves are. So it's very fascinating, and something I knew nothing about. So thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for being with us, Patricia.
Oh, thank you. It was great.
So thank you, Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Stay tuned for more adventure. Thanks.